I hope you're having a great day today. It is Monday afternoon and I am in the summer high tunnel and I am working on a project. I am working on pruning the tomatoes in order to get the trellis system set up. So I am pruning the bottom, looking for some airflow, increase some air movement at the bottom level down next to the plastic where it gets super hot. And so I need to do that first before I can go ahead and put in the T-post and put in the trellis system and get that all set up. So the tomatoes are, well, they would be taller if they were trellised already, but they're at least like 2 foot tall. It's definitely time. Probably could have done this a couple weeks ago and that would have actually been a little bit better, but they're not so big that I can't get them trellised. I use a Florida weave or a basket weave trellis system. And so I'm just gonna kind of show you what I do to trellis these tomatoes in here and how I prune and how I do the Florida weave. It's a super simple trellis system that actually you can use in your own garden pretty easily. I've been hanging out sitting here on the floor for the last hour or so. You gotta take breaks once in a while and stand up because I'm not 20 years old anymore. So I know this isn't a super great angle for you guys to see. I will move the camera so you can kind of see. I just wanted to talk a little bit and explain about like how I prune and what my system is. So this plant is actually kind of laying over on the ground, and so it's kind of fallen, and then it's running along the ground, and then the leaves and stuff are going up. And so that is a sign that I should have done this a couple weeks ago. But you know, I needed to like brand calves and do other stuff. So I'm just gonna kind of start hacking away at it in all reality. And so I'll just kind of do this, talk to you about it, and then I'll move the camera so you guys can see just a little bit better. But I just kind of thought it would be easier to explain and then show. That's how it worked in my brain. I don't know. So yeah, I'm just kind of trying to find some of the bigger branches. We do have some blossoms, so I obviously don't want to prune that off because that's already putting some energy into blossoms, and we want to keep those because we want to have some tomatoes. It's going to be a while until we have tomatoes. Obviously, the other day when it was 31 degrees, like that's not super great. The weather actually has been somewhat craptastic even today. It's been windy. We had like, I don't know, a fraction of an inch of rain come through. It like just barely got the concrete wet on my sidewalk, but it's been windy. These tomatoes, more so than the other ones, you can really see they're kind of suffering from some wind damage. They're the closest ones to the edge. The wind came through the other night, like 50 miles an hour. It was late. I didn't come and close the tunnels. So they're not super happy in this row. Pruning is actually going to help that quite a bit. Get rid of some of the excess foliage that they just don't need, and just get some air moving through. The trellis will help too, having some support, obviously, when the wind is blowing. Apparently it's just going to be a windy summer. I don't know. Some years it's like that here, and other years it's like not very windy at all, and apparently it's just going to be windy. So we had, yeah, some weather come through this morning. Maybe gonna get some thunderstorms again tonight. We got 1/10 of an inch yesterday. So it's time to cut hay. There is definitely enough hay out there to cut. It is not super tall. It's not gonna be like the best yielding hay crop ever, but it's tall enough to cut. So I am gonna cut hay, but there's rain in the forecast every day for the next like 4 days, and then it's 4th of July and stuff. So just gonna wait. Sometimes it's okay to just wait. And so that's kind of the plan. Wait till after the 4th of July, get through all of this thunderstormy 30 mile, 40 mile an hour winds. If I have stuff in windrows, it's just gonna relocate the windrow when the rain comes through. So there are people cutting. My neighbor cut, some people on the way to town already cut. They started cutting on Saturday even. It's been just like stupid windy. So I actually am quite glad that I don't have any hay on the ground. Equipment is ready to go though. Net wrap is in the baler. Like we're ready to go. We're just waiting till the weather is in our favor. This is what a plant looks like after it has been pruned. This is the jungly mess before it is pruned. So in all honesty, when I kind of start this, it's kind of just like, all right, well, this is a jungle, and so what I kind of do is I do look and see where there are blossoms. There are blossoms over here. Like I said, I don't want to prune the blossoms. Oh, this one even actually has a little tiny tomato on it. It's just a little tiny, can you guys even see that? Let me move the jungle. Little tiny tomato. This row is actually all of my paste tomatoes. There's a few different kinds. There's Amish paste, there's Blue Beach, there's Romas. I think there's some San Marzanos, if I remember correctly. So I'm looking, you can see the main stem down here. I am just gonna kind of start pruning some of the lower stuff. Here's what was a sucker that is now quite large, so I want to keep that, but I want to get rid of some of these smaller suckers. So tomato plants grow leaves, that's a leaf, that's a sucker. So the sucker grows in the 45. You could actually take this off, put it in water, and you would have a full leaf, like you'd have a full tomato plant. And so that's what creates kind of the bushiness of a tomato, is the suckers. And we want some of those, but I don't want all of them at the bottom, especially because it is hot in here and airflow is already somewhat restricted because I'm in the high tunnel. Definitely like to have good airflow at the bottom. Like to clean the plants up just so they can breathe a little bit. I also don't want anything touching the landscape fabric. Obviously I'm not getting rain in here, which is helpful. If you're growing outside, it definitely is a good idea to not have any leaves on the ground, just because you can get some disease and stuff if there's contact with the soil. I don't so much have to worry about that, although I still kind of do prune for that. That's the other plant. See, it's just a jungle. I just don't want stuff touching the ground. Want airflow. So we've got one main stem here. It's got 2 suckers on it. It's not focusing. And then this was a sucker that also formed off the main stem. So yeah, that one's good. That's the first tomato I've seen. First little baby tomato. I don't know that this is so much of like a how-to video. I'm just kind of more so showing you guys what I do and kind of explaining my thought process behind what I do. And I'm sure that it keeps focusing and unfocusing, so you're probably having a hard time even seeing what I'm doing. So tomatoes don't need all these leaves. They really don't. You don't want to cut. So here's a blossom set. I don't want to prune, like this is a sucker. I don't want to prune that. That's actually your new growth. That's your top growth on the plant. And so obviously you don't prune that. You can prune below that though and clean them up. They don't need all these leaves. I do get some curling in here of leaves, and it's never like a disease problem. It's usually always a environmental, like it's the heat and stuff. And they curl a lot. They look pretty good actually right now. This is kind of the time of the year where they curl, and then it's like they just get used to it and then they're fine. But I don't really have much leaf curling. A little bit happening, but I think I said like before, it's more so from the wind that we've had. So they're not doing too bad. But this just kind of helps. They just don't need all of this foliage down at the bottom. You can prune all season long. I won't be pruning all season long just because I don't have time. And so it is just get them into the weave, the Florida weave, and you know, I'll continuously do that, but I won't be pruning. I have pruned throughout the season before, and so if you're pruning for production, you would prune somewhat differently. There's ways to prune your tomatoes to make them produce, in theory, to produce more, and that is just to do like a single leader system, which is where you just you would take like one vine and you would prune everything off of it except for that top growth, which you can't see. Yeah, so you would prune literally almost everything. You'd leave like 2 sets of leaves, your blossoms, you'd prune that sucker, you'd prune that sucker that's just forming. Oh, look, there's another tomato. You'd prune this sucker off, and then you would use like a string system to tie it up. I'm not doing that. I have done it. I do think it helps, and I do think you get some really nice tomatoes when you do that. I just don't have time to do that. I don't have like, I would just almost need a person devoted to the tomatoes to do a system like that, because it has to be done pretty frequently in order to stay ahead of it, because they just grow so fast in the summer. So yeah, that's it. That one's done. It looks ugly. Don't be scared to prune your tomatoes. You're not going to kill them. It's going to help in the long run. So I've already done all of this back here. I have got this much of this row left to do, and I still need to put away my row cover. So I'm going to just bust this out real quick, and then I'm going to put in some T-post and start trellising. The ones down here at the end aren't quite as big, so it's a little bit easier to prune them just because they don't have as much foliage on them yet, and they're still growing nice and straight out of the ground, not so crazy yet. That's a pretty normal thing that I see happen here in the high tunnels, where the center grows the fastest and then the ends, both of the ends, grow a little tiny bit slower. This one leaf is like right in the way. Well, we don't need that then, do we? So I am just really, like I said before, cleaning up for airflow, making sure that the air is going to move through nicely, that the center bottom of the plant is nice and clear. Take that leaf off. This one has a lot of blossoms already for the size of it. We got a blossom cluster there, one on here, one in the back. Yeah, that looks good. That'll trellis really nicely. Here's all the leaves that I trimmed off today. I'm gonna get these picked up and I will get these out of here. Don't wanna leave any prunings in the high tunnel. It's just a place for like disease and bugs and stuff to set in. So gonna go ahead and get that cleaned up and then put some post in. I went ahead and laid out my post. So I'm doing post every 6 plants. I am kind of changing how I do post this year. I usually would do the ends in T-post, one in the middle, and then I would divide again. So like every like quarter, I don't know. So I'd put like 5 T-posts in the entire run, and then I would do like a wooden post. I've done some other like flimsier posts and stuff too, but I'm gonna try to do all T-posts this year and see how that works. I do have agricultural like trellising twine, and so it doesn't stretch. I would buy trellising twine, not just like twine. You use baling twine, that would probably work. But that's, so I'm gonna see 6 plants. I did some Googling and like people say every other plant. I'm not doing every other plant. That is a ton of T-posts. That's a ton of T-posts to put in. That's a ton to take out in the fall, and that's a ton of expense. So there's gonna be 11 posts per row. I have 6 rows, that's 66 posts. I will probably be reusing some posts from the Beckart fencing project this year. Then they're not all gonna look the same, and that's gonna bug me too, but. The next thing I have to do is I have to put the T-post in. So I am using a gas-powered T-post pounder. Works great. Every 6 plants, like I said earlier, the T-posts are going in the holes with the tomatoes. Otherwise, I'd have to cut another spot in the fabric. And this landscape fabric doesn't cut super well. I actually burn the holes in for the plants. We've got a storm coming in, so we're gonna see if we can beat the storm. There's like 2/100ths of an inch of rain in the forecast, but we're gonna get some wind. So let's see if I can get this done and get some trellis on. If not, I'll come back later and trellis. But every 6 plants, I have laid them out already. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I already put one in because that's what you're sitting on right now. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. And I actually put it in the 7th hole. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so we're gonna move the tomato out of the way. I'll show you guys this from a different angle once we get a few more in. But yeah, I'm just moving the tomato out of the way. Luckily, it's pretty soft here. I mean, it is soft, it's a garden. Push that in a bit so it's straight. I'll grab the T-post pounder. I just realized I put one of them in super crooked. That's cool. Fixed it. They're all relatively the same height. It's not perfect, but I'm not building a fence or nothing. I had to run back to the shop to get more stuff because I have forgotten at least half of all the things that I needed for this project, as is typical. But here's what we have for the next step, which is actually weaving the tomatoes. I use this piece of PVC. This is my tomato trellising PVC. You can tell because this is what the bottom looks like from rubbing on the plants. I don't know how long, it's this long. And it's 3/4 inch PVC. Any size of PVC will work. I have agricultural twine. I buy this from Johnny Seeds. I bought several boxes several years ago. It lasts I'll use like half a box this season. So, and I'm obviously growing like a lot of tomatoes. So if you have just a few tomatoes, this will last you a long time. I have a pair of scissors, and the trickiest thing about all of this is you have to get the string through the PVC. So I'll show you my little hack. I'm not going to be able to finish this project right now. It's thundering, and I just got a lightning alert on my phone. It's 10 miles away still, but I'm not going to stay in the high tunnel while it's lightning, and I'll go help Jeff. Let me show you real quick, though, how I do get the twine through the PVC. So I use all these landscape fabric staples in the garden, and this one's old and rusted, and so I break it. There's always some of these laying around. I toss them in corners. Yeah, there's just always some laying around. So I want just like a small piece of it. I had one last year that I used for the whole season. I don't know where it's at. Probably got thrown away when I cleaned up. All right, so I have part of a staple. On the end of the twine. It's raining. It always sounds like super dramatic in here when it's raining, and in all reality it's like not really actually all that dramatic. It's kind of like a tin roof type effect. So I'll think it's like really, really raining in the high tunnels, and I'll go outside and I'll be like, well, I can walk between the raindrops. So, all right, so we're tied together. I know that this like isn't complicated. Oh, there's probably spiders in here. Oh yeah, no, there's like a fair amount of cobwebs and stuff in here. It's not like this is super complicated or anything, but I do remember the first time I tried to do this, I was like pushing the string down, the twine, and like couldn't get it. And maybe clean enough that it'll go through. Like you need some weight. And no spiders. No cobwebs. Okay, there we go. So I'm gonna actually just tie this off to my first T-post. I'm gonna do that later. I'm gonna go put stuff away. I'm sure Jeff is making sure all the equipment and stuff is in. So we're gonna have a little rain delay. I'll be back later. To be determined what time. Well, it's been a couple hours and I'm back. I ended up having to go to town, had dinner, planted some microgreens, did a few other things. But I am gonna finish trellising and get this project done on this row. Still 5 more rows to go, but this one's gonna get done tonight. We ended up getting just like 2/100ths of an inch of rain. I was worried about hail because when we get these afternoon thunderstorms that come through, we often get hail. And so tractors and equipment and everything they do get put in. I had been watching the radar and there was a possibility of hail. We ended up not getting really anything. Some wind and a little drizzle of rain. So that was disappointing. But more rain in the forecast in the next couple of days. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm going to finish trellising tomatoes. Here is my staple. Can take that off. I'm just going to tie this to the first T-post and then start doing the weave pattern. So I don't carry my box of twine with me. I just have never done it that way. So I usually just put the twine in the middle of the row which of course, like, there's a knot in it. It does get a little tangly doing it this way. I've seen, like, when I've seen other people do this, like on social media, I've seen them have like a little, like a belt or something to put their box of twine in. That's about the middle. I don't ever do that. I just put it in the middle. It seems to work just fine. We use what we have. I have the middle of the high tunnel. So having the string through the PVC is how you're able to put the string where you need to do it. My first tomato is not in frame and it's kind of laying over. So just go back and forth, opposite directions. You'll be able to see here in a second. And I'll point this down too so you guys can see. This first one isn't really gonna do anything. When we come back around, it will get better. So now I'm at the post. I'm gonna make one full loop, well, sometimes 2 loops around the post. And then this is one of the fastest ways to trellis I have found. Like, once you get in the groove of it, it goes super quick, which I like that. And you're just going in front of one, behind the next one, in front, loop around the post. Let me show you from a different angle. Okay, so we are looped around the post. This tomato is kind of right on the post and is kind of in a weird spot, but we'll say that this one's in front, behind, front. This is tricky with one hand. I'm wrapped around another tomato. And then when we come back the other way, you go the opposite. Not behind. Okay, so now we're at a post. Around twice. And just keep going. Because these are kind of laying everywhere, that obviously makes it a bit trickier. That's why it's nicer to do them when they are just a bit smaller, but this will still work. And they need trellised. So you want to keep this tight, the string that you're wrapping around the tomatoes. You want it to be as taut as possible. Obviously not like, killing your tomato and constricting your tomato. And so this other hand holds the string and controls your tension. All right, so now I'm going to start my way back, and so I'm going to make sure that I'm on the opposite side of what I already put the string on. Same thing when I get to the post, wrap around twice. And that's how quick it goes once you get the hang of it. Super fast, super easy. This one's laying down. I'm on the back side. Now I'm on the front side. It's still gonna lay down until we get another layer on. And we're gonna go when we get all the way down to the end, I'm gonna do another row, but I'm gonna go up higher. When I get to the post, if I feel like my string is a little loose, now is a good time to pull on it and make sure that everything is tight, and that will also kind of help some of those bottom branches stand up, is if you make things just a bit tighter when you're wrapping around the post. Try not to get tangled up in the string, of course. There's a post. You can see the string is around both sides of the tomato. That tomato is now supported. The only time I tie is at the very end. These scissors are from the dollar store, from Dollar Tree. Don't buy scissors at the dollar store, in case you were wondering. So I just tie a knot off at the end. Make sure it's tight. Make sure the string is tight. Sometimes you'll have a little guy, like this guy's super little, right? He's wrapped on both sides, just like everybody else. He's gonna kind of just flop around for a little bit, but I can kind of just work him up as he gets bigger. So I am gonna start my next layer, probably about here or so. So that's gonna miss him until he's like tall and strong. There we go. Put some dirt around him. But I'll just manually go back and put those ones up if I have to, if I have some. And I have a few. I don't have very many, but I have a few that are just too small. So you just kind of move those in as they get bigger, if that makes sense. So this is impossible to film, by the way, so that you can see me and the plant. I hope it's okay. Doing the best I can, all right? But yeah, I'm just going to do another layer. Like I said, I'm going to start. Some of these are big. So I'll go up a couple notches on the T-post. T-posts work great because they don't slip. You can put your string on these notches and they won't fall down. So that's the nice thing about using T-post. So I'm just gonna do one more layer real fast like and get this done. All right, I'm all finished. I will show you guys before it gets completely dark on us in here what it looks like now that it has 2 layers on it. It took about 7 minutes to do down and back. So super time efficient. Regardless of what I do in here and what trellising system I use, it is going to turn into a jungle. That is just the nature when you're growing tomatoes. I will not do cages. That is just awful. Cages, I do not like them at all. I've thought about doing pig panels and letting them grow up those. Maybe I'll try that. Maybe I'll see. Maybe I can do it on one of them. I've got like a lot of partial pig panels and stuff around, so maybe I'll do that. It is super efficient. Like I said before, I have done the single leader up the high tunnel. It's time consuming and I just don't really have the time. So this keeps them up off the ground. It basically like sandwiches them together. They look real kind of funky right now. It'll look they'll kind of grow up into that support and stuff a little bit more and start putting on more leaves and stuff. And I will trim just a tiny bit more once again, probably, so that we keep airflow down at the bottom. But yeah, let's take a look at, now that it has 2 layers, I'll show you guys closer what it looks like. And it's kind of just a jungly, stringy mess. But it is going to do what I need it to do. You can see strings on this side, strings on that side. Now the tomato has support. I will do this again in about 7 to 10 days, and I will keep doing it until I reach the top of the T-post about every week, 10 days, just depending on temperature and how fast everything is growing. The indeterminates, I have some determinants in here which will grow to a set size and then quit growing. Indeterminates will grow the entire season. They'll keep sending out suckers and just keep growing. They're gonna just kind of drape over. So we'll see if I needed to put more post in and if the string supports it as they get heavier and they start putting fruit on. Yeah, I kind of hate trellising. It's a necessary thing that has to be done. There isn't really like a good system with my time constraints, but we'll see how this goes. T-posts are going to be sturdier than using the wooden post and the other type of post that I was using before. I had a real flimsy post. None of them are in here. They all fell down one year. So this will be better than that, that's for sure. So yeah, I'm excited to see with this spacing, with this T-post spacing, how it turns out. But yeah, we're off to a start. It has been cool this summer. Could use some heat. These tomatoes could be a little bit taller. Like that would be great. I just need some heat, and more than anything, like we need consistency. Like it was 95 degrees yesterday, which great for tomatoes. They love that. I think the 4th of July is going to be like 68 degrees, and we're kind of like in the 70s all week. And it's the first week in July, so need some heat so stuff can get growing. My veggie basket season starts here in a couple of weeks, and I don't quite know yet what we're going to put in it. There's things like lettuce and radishes and stuff planted, so we'll have stuff. I always do, but yeah, sunshine, heat, some rain would be okay too. If you're in the United States and celebrating the 4th of July, I hope you do it safely and you have a lot of fun and that the weather is perfect for where you're at. It's going to be 68 degrees. So that means it's going to be cold at fireworks, and it's going to be sweatshirt and blanket watching the fireworks, but that's okay. Yeah. Hope you guys have a great week. I will see you next week with haying content. Probably a plan on like a Monday or Tuesday video with the start of haying. But yeah, enjoy the 4th of July, and I will see you next week. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it so much. Have a great night.